Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Paul Arujo, President of First West's Valley First Division, and I'm delighted to welcome our members and guests in person and online to our 2023 Annual General Meeting. Those of us in person are here at the Penticton Trade and Convention Center this evening, and to open the meeting, I want to acknowledge that the land we're privileged to meet on today is the traditional and unceded territory of the Salix Okanagan peoples. I'm grateful for their stewardship of these lands and for the opportunity to make the home here. And before we get started, I would like to welcome a special guest, Chief Greg Gabriel from the Penticton Indian Band, who is here to help us welcome each of you to this evening's AGM. Chief, come on up.
Thank you. Vice Peace Nixil, in charge squeeze Saltican, Ilmekam Cantels and Pinkton. I just welcomed you in our language, our native tongue, welcome you into our community and into our, what we call our area of responsibility. My name is Chief Greg Gabriel. I'm the current chief of the Penticton Indian Band. I'm also a descendant of the original inhabitants of this place we know as St. Pinkton. St. Pinkton, you now know as Penticton, in our language means a place to live forever. And if you're from here, you will know that the surrounding beauty of this land is the reason we chose this place where we want to live forever. I welcome you and hope you have a good evening during your meeting. And thank you for the opportunity to come in and greet you and welcome you into our area and our community. And thank you for this opportunity. White Liminum.
Thank you so much, Chief Gabriel, and then I'd like to give you this as an offer of First West and Valley First.
Should be a credit card in there.
Thank
you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I can get you a credit card. Thank you so much, Chief Gabriel. And I would like to invite First West Credit Union's Board Chair Sean Newman to the podium now.
Thank you, Paulo, and thank you, Chief Gabriel. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sean Newman, the Chair of First West Credit Union's Board of Directors, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all to our 2023 Annual General Meeting. So over the next hour, you're gonna learn a little bit more about your credit union's performance in 2022, its financial strength, and its visionary future focus. And we're glad you're here, so without further ado, I declare First West's 14th Annual General Meeting officially open. The notice of AGM was sent on April 11th, 2023 to all members of record. Thank you, James. In compliance with First West Credit record as of December 21st, 2022, in compliance with First West Credit Union rules and the Credit Union Incorporation Act. So we have here, I left my glasses on the chair, but I think I can see this. We have in person, we have 73 voting members. We have in person 3 guests. Attending online, we have 91 voting members, and online we have 9 guests. For a total membership attending of 164 and guests of 12. So that meets our minimum requirement of 25 members present, and we do have a quorum. So given that, I declare this meeting to be regularly called and properly constituted for the transaction of business. So throughout this evening, I'm going to be raising a number of items which will require you, our members, to vote. So members here who are eligible to vote will use the digital keypads. You should have one of these that you were provided when you arrived. Members attending online who are eligible to vote have been given access to an online voting platform that you'll use the online voting buttons there. So, to get started, to ensure that everyone is comfortable with the voting technology that we've provided here this evening, I'd like to do a practice run right now. For those of you participating online, if you're viewing the AGM in full screen mode on your browser, you'll need to leave full screen mode in order to see the voting options, so I'd give you a moment to do that here as well. So we do have a practice question for you here. We had our research team deeply explore what would be an appropriate question for us to engage in here together this evening. So the question they've come up with is, are you for or against pineapple on pizza? So I have an answer to that. I don't know what your answer is, but eligible members select 1 on your keypad for and 2 for against. There's no middle ground here. You have to be either for or against pineapple on pizza. Eligible members attending online, when the voting screen appears, please make your selection and then choose submit and confirm. So while you're doing the practice vote, we're going to have a short look at a video about a Valley First business, Ecopave Systems. They're a leader in asphalt recycling, and they're proudly based in Kamloops. So let's watch that together.
Ecopave is a manufacturing company of hot-in-place recycling equipment. I was in the conventional paving business years ago and thought, you know, we're buying all this oil and crushing all this aggregate and trucking it out to the road, and it's sitting right here. If we removed it from the road surface and exposed a lower layer and heated that and then combined them back together again, it would take us 1 minute. We introduced that, and it basically took off in BC, and we've been doing it ever since. We did the Kelowna Airport, so the 737s and 767s land on our product. And we have quite a strong position in the province of British Columbia. And now Ontario is seeing what we do, and they really wanted to develop a program in Ontario using our technology.
The business like Ecopave starts here, and it's part of the Kamloops community. And we know the business inside and out. And just because they set up operations, you know, in Alberta or set up operations in Ontario, we're still lending to our members that we know we've got a great track record with, that we're looking for them to grow, succeed, and do really well in their business. When you are provincially regulated, you are limited also to what you can lend.
Valley First knows my business. I'd prefer not to change banks. To operate in Ontario without financing, basically, of equipment, operating capital is tough.
Being able to offer, you know, solutions in different provinces, you know, that certainly will, you know, help our existing members, you know, grow their business. But we in turn will be growing our business as well. We'll be able to offer, you know, more products and services on the personal and the commercial side. In order to qualify to become a federal credit union, the health of the organization, the balance sheet, the profitability, the resilience of that organization needs to be at the highest level. And we support businesses to see them grow, to see them succeed, to see them get to that level. Why wouldn't we do that ourselves?
Excellent. Great to see the story of a thriving local business. So thank you, everyone, for your votes. So I'm now going to confirm with James Grange to make sure our voting technology is working. James, what are the results of our test question? Are members liking pineapple or not?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The online and in-person votes are in. And the overwhelming majority of First West members are for pineapple on pizza.
All right, good to know. Excellent, that's what I would have voted for as well. So now that you're familiar with how to vote, I want to note that we have in attendance today 9 of our 12 directors, plus 2 directors joining us online, as well as several members of First West senior leadership team and other team members. So to assist with the orderly conduct of business, I've appointed Robin Babcock, recording secretary, and James Grange as parliamentarian for tonight. And I'd also like to then draw your attention to the rules of conduct, and these are included in the meeting package that was emailed to you or given to you prior to entering the room. Our accepted rules of conduct permit only voting members to ask questions at the meeting. So following the formal presentations, we will have a time to entertain any questions from members. And please note that we have no ordinary resolutions to be voted on at this meeting other than the usual ones, which are relating to the approval of the auditor's report and the appointment of the auditors. No other resolutions were submitted under the rules of the credit union. And finally, if you've been to an AGM before, you'll know that the AGM is for general membership business and not for dealing with personal issues. But personal matters can be addressed and taken up with local presidents and his leadership team. So I have a motion from Susan Byram, seconded by Michelle Osborne, to approve the rules of conduct. And so we're going to use our newfound voting skills right now. So when you see the motion on your screen, please vote for or against according to the options that you see on the screen. So we're just going to take a moment here to allow that vote to happen. Very soothing music while we wait. Feel like we're on hold? Looking for a signal if we're ready. Yeah, we're good. Okay. Excellent. So I declare that the vote to approve the rules of conduct has passed. We'll keep moving forward. So I'd now like to draw your attention to the meeting agenda. So for members attending online, you'll have received the link to the meeting package with the agenda in the same email that had the link for this video. And for those here, please refer to the meeting package you received when you checked in. So in this, I have a motion from Lacey McLaughlin and Rochelle Bedouin to approve the agenda. And once again, we're going to vote on that as well. So again, 1 for and 2 for against. I assume the music means that we can declare the vote to approve the agenda passed. Great. So last year, the First West AGM was held on April 28th, and the minutes of that meeting are included in the meeting package if you've had a chance to look at those. If there are any need for correction to those minutes, please let us know during the question period. You can just go to a mic at that point and let us know. And for those of you here during question period in person, you can move to the microphone in the center aisle, or you can raise your hand and a runner will bring a portable mic to you as well. For those of you joining us online, you can enter a note now by clicking Ask a Question. You can do that throughout the evening, and that's a button on your screen, and we'll address that then during the question period. So I declare the minutes approved as circulated. So there was no business arising out of last year's AGM and no unfinished business, so we're going to now proceed with our reports. So Director Deborah Buzzard, the chair of the Nominations Task Force, will give us a report on the 2023 Board of Directors election. Deborah extends her regrets that she could not be with here tonight, so we will hear her report in a pre-recorded video message now.
Thank you, Sean. As chair of this year's Nominations Task Force, and on behalf of my fellow Task Force members, David Letkeman, Meryl Corbett, and our members at large, Renee Merrifield and Ender Ilke, it's my pleasure to share an overview of the task force's work this year and the election process. The Nominations Task Force is a subset of our Governance and Nominations Committee. It is made up of 3 directors and 2 non-director members at large who bring their objectivity to the director candidate selection process. I want to thank you both, Renee and Ender, for giving your time, expertise, and for your diligent contributions. This year, the task force was also assisted by an independent consultant who checked references for us, conducted preliminary interviews, and provided us with guidance. Our job as a task force is to seek and endorse candidates who have the right mix of specialized skills and experience necessary to steward the credit union on behalf of all the members. This year, the terms of 5 directors will expire at the conclusion of this AGM. 4 positions are for 3-year terms, and 1 is for a 1-year term to complete the full term of a director who resigned back in April 2022. On December the 15th, we issued the call for nominations, inviting qualified candidates to apply who had expertise and experience in the following areas: digital leadership, corporate governance, including environmental and social governance, real estate and/or development, and also in the law. Importantly, we also inform members that diversity, equity, and inclusion are essential elements in attracting high-caliber directors, maintaining a high-functioning board, and building our competitive advantage. When nominations closed on January the 18th, 10 candidates had submitted their nomination papers. After a thorough review and deliberation process, the Nominations Task Force endorsed 5 candidates. It's important to note that endorsement isn't a popularity contest. The task force works hard to maintain and remain impartial and objective. Incumbents, for example, are not automatically endorsed. They only receive our endorsement if their expertise and experience remain relevant to our market needs and to First West's strategic direction. Following endorsements, all candidates were then asked to consider their endorsement status and to declare whether they would remain in the election. Although not required to, the candidates who were not endorsed later voluntarily withdrew their candidacy. This left 5 candidates for the 5 available seats. As a result, the following candidates were declared elected as at-large directors by acclamation for a 3-year term. They are Kathy McIntyre, an incumbent director based in Victoria, and Sean Newman, Jeff Dyke, and Darrell Kropp, incumbent directors based in Abbotsford. Tom Knopfel, an incumbent director based in Vancouver, was elected to fill that 1-year term. My warmest congratulations to all of our re-elected directors. I trust this has been a helpful overview of the election process. And as I cannot be there, I've asked Director David Letkeman to help answer any questions you may have during the question period. Thank you all. Back to you, Sean.
Thank you, Deborah. And congratulations once again to my fellow re-elected directors. And I look forward to working with you throughout the upcoming terms. So some of you with us this evening will know that it is our practice to make a charitable donation in conjunction with our director elections. So I am pleased to say this year that we're donating $2,500 to each of our regional signature causes. The Full Cupboard in the Envision Financial and Island Savings regions, and Feed the Valley in the Valley First region. The total donation amount then is $7,500, and it provides an equivalent of 15,000 meals for those in need in our communities. And I know that many of you also give to our signature causes in support of our local food banks. So on behalf of the Board of Directors, I do want to say thank you for your support of these causes over the past year, during which the food banks have been in a great deal of need to serve their clients in our communities. They play an important role in our communities. This year promises to be an exciting one for First West Credit Union, potentially a groundbreaking year. And some of you will recall that in 2021, members resoundingly voted to approve First West moving ahead to become a federally regulated credit union. Since then, a tremendous amount of work has been completed against that objective. So of the 10 major steps related to the related activities required before First West can formally apply to the regulator, we have completed 9 of those 10. What's more, in the first half of 2022, the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions, that's the federal regulator known as OSFI, completed an in-depth review of First West's business, while the credit union's management team developed action plans to address any outstanding items and requirements of OSFI. So we've come a long way in a short time since that member vote. And I am pleased to tell you that we are striving to become federally regulated by the fall of 2023, this year, subject, of course, to regulatory approval. Considering the possibility of federal regulation for First West was an idea sparked from the board's responsibility to anticipate opportunities and risks, and ensuring that these are in view of the credit union's senior leadership team. And if you attended one of our recent AGMs or read the member material that we produced, you will know that the board conducted research and exploration over several years, identifying federal regulation as a real opportunity, an opportunity to expand the credit union's potential. Federal regulation is a pathway to long-term strategic possibility that enables us to continue building a credit union that stands the test of time, one that weathers challenges and challenging economic periods, and that's really not unlike some of the economic period that we're in right now. So today, the board and I remain convinced that becoming a federal credit union continues to be in the best interests of First West members, employees, and the communities that we're part of. And I say that partly because I've already seen a lot of the potential benefit of federal requirements to First West. For example, shoring up capital and liquidity, a key part of our balance sheet, to levels required by OSFI, means that First West is tremendously stable, more stable than ever before. And in light of what we all hear in the news in recent financial troubles of a few banks outside of Canada, we can all agree just on how important that stability is. And you're going to hear more of that when our Chief Financial Officer, Mark Moreland, in just a few minutes. So speaking of adverse economic conditions, federal regulation makes another strategic lever available for First West, and that's our ability to diversify our markets of operation. So being able to operate in markets beyond the province of British Columbia is something that can really reduce the impact of economic downturns, especially those that are regionally specific. So we do have this advantage to some degree right now with our business spanning multiple provinces, but that advantage will strengthen really exponentially as a federal credit union. When the board and I reflect on the benefits we've already seen and we imagine the new strategic opportunities that have not been open to First West so far, the value in becoming a federal credit union could not be more obvious to us. And I really do hope that these resonate with you as members now and as we move into the future. Additionally, when I think about the last few years, characterized by contentious global health crisis, by inflation, by rising interest rates, by market volatility, by a collapse in cryptocurrency, by an unexpected war, it's a tough list to read through, you realize that unpredictable periods are simply a reality of our world right now in this present age. This rapid pace of change is just the way it is, and I am sure that this is going to be continuing into the future. And a good example of this, specifically, is the emergence of artificial intelligence. And if you've been keeping tabs on the topic, you'll know that many companies and countries are really trying to come to grips with this technology now that numerous AI companies have made their AI systems broadly available. So you may have heard of the commotion around ChatGPT. And though AI like this has really been in development for decades, it's only now, in the last number of years, that progress has really accelerated. And it has reached a critical mass where the capabilities have reached a level of intelligence that really resembles human intelligence. And therefore, it is something that we will need to reckon with. And this includes the financial service sector. While we've seen some use of artificial intelligence in recent years, like robo-advisors, even our own Finley chatbot, if you've had a chance to use that online, the potential breadth of AI applications, especially in a business setting, has rapidly increased in the last number of years with major advances in this field. And these are the kinds of things that First West must be ready for and even be ahead of. So yes, life has returned to normal in some ways after a strange few years, but change has not slowed at all. And in a world that continues to become more and more complex and nuanced, your board of directors is keenly focused on ensuring that First West is well positioned to thrive. And that includes a sustainable approach to doing business which spans everything, affecting everything from attracting talented professionals to lending practices to running our branches and more. Sustainability holds strategic advantage right now, but that's fast becoming table stakes for all businesses. So it is clear that businesses must gauge their operations not only in terms of the bottom line, in terms of financial performance, but also in terms of the impact that we have as an organization on our families, on our friends, on our neighbors, and on the planet that we share. The board is committed to the growth of First West in sustainability, to ensuring the ongoing relevance and financial strength of the credit union in a world that is increasingly dynamic and interconnected. So on that note, I am pleased to say that in June 2022, First West received its second comprehensive environmental, social, and governance ESG rating from Morningstar Sustainalytics. And this is a leading independent ESG and corporate governance firm. And this rating evaluates numerous sustainability-related factors across First West. And research does show more and more that companies that adopt ESG principles have a lower risk level and are more resilient over time. So Morningstar conducted months of research at First West to ensure the production of an accurate rating. This resulted in First West receiving a rating of 16.7 low risk, of experiencing material financial impacts caused by ESG factors. So if that seems unfamiliar to you or new to you, let me just remind you that a lower score is better, and it's typically indicating that an organization is appropriately future-focused and better equipped to anticipate future risk and opportunities. Additionally, that 16.7 score that we received this year is even better than our first ever score of 2021. And it affirms that First West standing as an ESG leader in the financial services industry in Canada. So I hope you as members can be proud of this rating and the year-over-year improvement. I think it reflects the good things that we've been focused on to help our members and communities thrive, and it does put First West on a footing with the most socially conscious financial institutions in Canada, something I think we can all be proud of. The board and I are really pleased with First West's progress and performance in 2022. Which was, to be certain, a bumpy year. The credit union continues to grow in financial strength, and it remains relevant in a very dynamic marketplace that's continually shaped by emerging technology, as I mentioned, by global connectedness, and by shifting consumer expectations and brand loyalties. So on behalf of the board of directors, I do want to thank you, our members, for the confidence that you continue to put in the credit union, in the leadership that we have, and in the work that's happening towards making the vision of a resilient credit union a reality. We are on our way to an even stronger and more sustainable future for our members, for our employees, and for our communities. So next, to dive into that a little bit more, we'll hear from our CEO, Lonnie Skinner, and then after that, our CFO, Mark Moreland, will come up. So over to you, Lonnie.
Thank you, Sean, and good evening, everyone. Well, as Sean just mentioned, 2022 was certainly a bumpy ride for the Canadian economy, and we've all felt the impact in one way or another. In fact, at last year's AGM, I had remarked that 2021 was another difficult year, following on from 2020. And yet here we are, riding out yet another tough time, with some of the most challenging economic conditions in recent memory. If nothing else, this trend of a few tough years remind us that life will have its periods of uncertainty. Despite the challenging economic environment, First West chalked up a really strong year. As Sean has noted already, we made excellent progress in our federal journey, which I'll comment a bit more about in a few more minutes. First, though, I want to touch on a number of things our teams worked hard to deliver for our members in 2022. Whether it's personal banking or business banking, helping members feel more certain, secure, and empowered is always the way that we want to work in, is to be top of mind for First West, and even more so during rough economic times. To help bring members a greater sense of confidence through expert know-how, we held personal finance seminars chock full of advice and perspectives on topics important to our members. Topics including navigating the home buyer's market, financial planning, decision-making, and investments and estate planning. We also brought members a more powerful and flexible way to build their all-important savings through our new registered tax-free, high-interest savings account with a bonus interest rate and the flexibility to invest any amount with no minimum balance. Fortifying our already strong and secure digital banking security is something we're also very serious about. Our cybersecurity and web experience teams work nonstop to be ahead of cyber criminals, and in 2022, we added two-step verification for tasks like adding a new bill payee or fulfilling an e-transfer money request. I'm pleased to say that these security efforts have driven an 80% year-over-year increase, or I should say reduction, in fraud incidents and losses involving our members, so a huge improvement for our members. For our business and commercial members, we launched the Visa Infinitive business card that comes with access to the Visa Spend Clarity tool. This gives business owners powerful credit card management capability. Our commercial members also received an important online banking experience with improved navigation, enhanced display for ease of readability across various devices, greater accessibility, and a modern look and feel. Last and not certainly least, when some of our members' financial situations were impacted by last year's devastating wildfires, we were able to help them get their feet back under them through our financial hardship program. Earlier, Sean mentioned the progress First West has made towards becoming a federal credit union. I share his confidence that federal regulation remains an important key in a bright future for our organization. As we worked with the federal regulatory bodies over the last year and a half, we continue to gain a much deeper knowledge of the rigor, thoughtfulness, and care that has gone into federal requirements and guidelines. You heard Sean comment on the federal liquidity and capital requirements and how this has put First West ahead and has helped us benefit over the past few years. I'd like to turn the focus for a moment to another compelling aspect of becoming a federal credit union that we've been digging into quite a bit in the recent areas, and that's been with our alignment to FCAC guidelines. If FCAC sounds new to you, the acronym is for the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, and is part of the federal regulatory framework. They're the federal agency that's responsible for protecting the rights and interests of consumers of financial products and services. I won't get into the weeds on everything because there's quite a bit of detail, and there's lots that you can find on information online if you choose to do that. But I do want to give you a sense for what their guidance will bring to members and potential members. Let's take, for example, the principle of appropriateness. FCAC requires that financial institutions offer products that are appropriate to their customers. Understanding what is appropriate follows a detailed approach that includes learning about the customer's unique circumstances and financial needs, as well as knowing deeply the type of products that we have. It also includes helping the customer understand the products being offered, how it fits their needs, and why other products may not be appropriate for them. Appropriateness, therefore, really helps to fine-tune the financial product selection process and works well to increase the overall customer satisfaction. FCAC also guides financial institutions to help all Canadians gain access to basic banking. The reality is that it still is a challenge for some in our day and age. Those who have problems getting a bank account have limited options for banking service and often use payday loan and check cashing businesses where the fees and interest rates are very high. This is certainly not in their favor, nor is it helping them develop good financial practices and well-being. Some of these folks that are struggling to get access to banking and expert advice may even be our own family members or neighbors. So I'm really excited that First West, as a federal credit union, will have the opportunity to reduce these kinds of barriers. These examples are just a shadow of the good things yet to come. The fact is, though, how we have always done things already aligns with the spirit of FCAC's guidance, meaning that our members are always at the center of everything we do. So I'm really encouraged on this aspect of being a federal credit union because I see that it is going to give us some new angles on how we can help members thrive today and into the future. And when we think about the future of First West, near and long term, it must include a vision of our impact in the communities we serve and in the world at large. The resilience of First West matters to our community and our neighbors. Our continued financial strength is a big reason why year after year we can give back a generous sum to help create capacity for organizations that are making change in people's lives. So for example, in 2022, we invested over $3.2 million into our communities, including through our signature cause focused on food security. Some of you will recall that our approach to community investment also goes beyond just the dollars and cents. As a cooperative, it's in our nature to inspire and empower our employees to leverage their own abilities in the nonprofit sector. Year after year, our employees continue to build sweat equity for dozens and dozens of nonprofits. And I'm pleased to say that in 2022, our employees logged more than 6,200 hours of time in their own volunteerism in their communities. Altogether, despite it being yet another year of tough economic conditions, the team at First West has kept good things growing for our members. Periods of continued uncertainty like this have a way of causing people to prioritize and focus on what truly matters. For our team, it's no different. The things that matter to us are ultimately driven by our purpose, which is to help members and communities thrive. This is a beacon that always cuts through the fog of uncertain time. It's our North Star. Being relentless about our purpose is ultimately what enabled us to deliver value to help build our members' financial well-being and confidence throughout a volatile year. Being purpose-driven is what will always inspire us to give our members our best, even when times are not the best. I want to thank each and every member for continuing to choose First West and its divisions, Valley First, Enderby and District Financial, Envision Financial, and Island Savings. We cherish the opportunity to help you do things in your life that matter to you most. I'd now like to invite our Chief Financial Officer, Mark Moreland, to review our 2022 financial results.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lonnie. Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to review First West 2022 financial performance with you this evening. Detailed information of First West performance is available in our 2022 annual report, which is available online at firstwestcu.ca. In the report, you'll find the consolidated financial statements, alongside management's discussion and analysis of First West performance and more. I'd like to first address a burning question that some of you may have sitting in the back of your minds. And that question is probably something like, could First West fail like those banks in the US? Let me extinguish those questions straight away. The story of these banks is not First West's story. In the case of Silicon Valley Bank, the bank was a highly specialized institution with a niche clientele, largely consisting of technology startups and venture capital investors. And in a couple of instances, this bank made major and unusual mistakes in how they handled their deposits, which accelerated liquidity issues. First West is a completely different kind of financial institution. Your credit union has a high-quality, highly secured, well-diversified book of business with above adequate liquidity and a strong capital position. Furthermore, First West financial strength and stability is independently affirmed. DBRS Morningstar, one of the world's largest credit rating agencies, has confirmed a long-term issuer rating of BBB high and both a short-term issuer rating and a short-term instruments rating of R1 low for First West, noting that the trend on all ratings is stable, a strong credit rating that provides assurance to our members. It is also important to note that these failures occurred in the US financial system, which is different from ours. The Canadian financial system is one of the safest, strongest, and most respected in the world. And First West is part of that rigorous system that includes effective policy, regulation, supervision, liquidity support, deposit insurance, and recovery and resolution strategies. All right, let's move on to the 2022 financial results. Despite how difficult a year it was with sustained volatility in the market, I'm pleased with our financial results for 2022. First West enjoys a position of strength and stability, which we've built through years of consistently strong financial performance and prudent stewardship. Since First West was founded in 2010, we've focused on strong, solid operational performance. We've achieved healthy earnings and steady growth in the balance sheet. What's more, the strategic efforts we've undertaken in recent years to prepare for becoming a federal credit union have further enhanced our resilience. In fact, federal credit unions receive some of the highest levels of oversight afforded to financial institutions in Canada, and we expect that these stringent regulatory requirements will further protect our members' interests. Our enduring financial strength gives us a solid foundation from which to navigate the challenges of the past year. First West performed admirably in 2022. Our balance sheet, also referred to as our assets, showed respectable growth of $600 million, which marks an increase of 5% compared to 4% in 2021. Overall, assets now sit at $13.3 billion. First West's loan portfolio grew by $1.1 billion, an increase of 10.5% compared to 11.2% in 2021. The portfolio retained roughly the same loan composition of 61% personal and mortgage loans and 39% commercial loans. Both commercial and residential lending showed strong growth, with commercial lending growth of $388.5 million, or 9.9%, and retail and residential lending growth of $670.3 million, or 10.8%. Deposits increased by $388.5 million to $11.4 billion, an increase of 3.5% compared with 4.3% growth in 2021. Unstable market conditions and a stagnating economy, driven in part by inflation, rising interest rates, and international events, did have a slightly dampening effect on our wealth management business in 2022. However, despite these difficult conditions, our wealth teams achieved revenues of $36.3 million in 2022, marking an increase of $2.2 million over 2021. Overall, wealth assets under administration decreased $65.4 million, or 1.6% in 22, putting total wealth assets under administration at $4.1 billion for 2022. I'm going to take a little. Now let's turn to the income statement. Net interest income, which is interest and investment income earned on assets, less interest expense on deposits and borrowings, showed a modest increase of $10.2 million, or 4.4%, compared to $241.3 million compared to $231.1 million in 2021. Profit for the year was $37 million, compared with $66.9 million in 2021. This decrease was expected and primarily due to a return to the normal level of credit provision and prepayment penalty fee income, combined with a reduction in investment income. Looking now at First West's operating efficiency, which is the ratio of operating expenses to revenue. With operating efficiency, lower numbers are better. They indicate that we're getting strong performance out of our assets and growing the credit union, especially with lower expense levels, overall running a more efficient business. However, this traditional measure of efficiency assumes little change in revenue structures. In 2022, First West operating efficiency dipped to 84.8% from 77.5% in 2021. The weakening of our operating efficiency in 2022 is primarily owed to reduced revenues in areas such as investment returns and penalty fees, which I mentioned a few moments ago. Expenses have, in reality, grown significantly less than inflation during 2022. That said, management is still aiming to improve operating efficiency through meticulous expense management, data-driven marketing, and offerings to grow the membership base, while looking forward to the potential for a soft landing to the economic conditions, which is a distinct possibility according to more than a few sources. Turning now to our capital position. Capital is foundational to a strong, stable, and resilient financial institution. A higher capital ratio better prepares the credit union for unforeseen losses, which can happen at any time, but especially during rough economic periods like we've seen recently. After distributions, First West capital position remained very solid in 2022, with a capital ratio of 13.8%. This is well above the recommended provincial regulatory minimum of 8.0%. As a quick side note here to Sean's comment earlier about building up capital in preparation for federal regulation, while the provincial regulatory minimum is 8.0%, the minimum capital ratio for a federal credit union is 10.5%, including a 2.5% conservation capital thank you very much, capital conservation buffer. There we go, third time lucky. As you can tell, we're well above the federal regulator requires. I hope that gives you a deeper sense of confidence in your stability of the credit union, but maybe not in my pronunciation. You heard Lonnie mention earlier that First West invested more than $3.2 million in 2022 to better help our communities and make an impact where we live and work. That investment brings our total corporate giving to $35.9 million since the formation of First West in 2010. I'm proud to be part of an organization that believes in leveraging its financial strength and employee capabilities to help communities we call home. And I hope this makes you all proud too as a member of First West. I'm also proud of our financial results in 2022, in which our member-facing teams play a vital role in driving. Climbing interest rates, rising cost of goods, elevated housing prices, and even housing supply, all of these can create stresses for members who look to our advisors for help with their financial resources. So I want to give full credit to our branch teams, both personal banking and commercial, our Member Advice Centre team, and our wealth teams, who all dug deep to provide members with the financial advice for these tough economic times. So whether this period of economic difficulty will last for the remainder of this year and stretch into next year, I'm not sure. No one really is sure for that matter. But what I am sure of is First West's future. Our financial strength continues to grow as we prepare to be able to do more as a federal credit union. The financial sector continues to be open to disruption of traditional banking models, so it behooves us to remain agile with a focus on innovation and a commitment to produce truly unique value for our members and attract the good thing that we're growing at First West. With that in mind, we continue to bring more technology, product and service value to our members faster than ever before because of our expertise in agile delivery. And our strategy, business plans, and activities become more data-driven and precise every day. For these reasons and more, I believe you, our members, can have great confidence that First West's strength and resilience continues to build for members now and for generations to come. Sean, back to you.
Thank you, Lonnie and Mark. So next on the agenda is the report of our external auditors. And representing our external auditors, KPMG, we have Jonathan Wong joining us online today. And there is a condensed version of the auditor's report that was in the notice of AGM. It was mailed to all members, but a full version of the financial statements is available on the First West website. You just have to look for the 2022 annual report link. So I'd like to now invite Meryl Corbett, the chair of the Audit and Conduct Review Committee, to present a motion to receive the auditor's report on the 2022 financial statements and a motion to appoint the auditors for 2023. Meryl.
Thank you, Sean. Well, the auditor's report can be found, as Sean just mentioned, in the notice of AGM as well as the annual report. This report specifies that First West's financial statements give a true and fair view in accordance with the financial framework used in their preparation and presentation. If you have any questions related to the auditor's report, we'll be happy to answer them during the question period. For those of you with us here in person, please move to the microphone in the center aisle or raise your hand and our mic runner will come to you. For those of you joining us online, you can enter a note now by clicking Ask a Question button on your screen, and we'll address it during the question period. Now to the formal business. I hereby move to receive the auditor's report on the 2022 financial statements for First West Credit Union.
Thank you, Meryl. That motion is seconded by Malaya Barker. So we'd like you now to please vote when you see the motion on the screen. Again, Pressing 1 for for and 2 for against. Should be getting used to the voting process at this point. Thank you for voting. Meryl, back to you for the appointment of the auditors.
Great. Thank you, Sean. I hereby move that in compliance with the Credit Union Incorporation Act and regulations, that KPMG, Chartered Professional Accountants, be appointed auditors of the credit union for the 2023 fiscal year, and that the Board of Directors be authorized to fix the remuneration of the auditors.
Again, thank you, Meryl. And that motion is seconded by Reese Spencer. And again, please vote when you see the motion on the screen. 1 for 4 and 2 for against, and those online, the same thing. But this time, while we're voting, rather than that very catchy music we've been listening to, we're going to take a chance to look at one more video. And this one tells a story about how our team has reached out to help members who are most at risk during last year's rising interest rate environment.
In the early part of last year, in 2022, we identified a need to reach out to our variable rate mortgage members. And the reason for that is because the Bank of Canada had already completed 2 increases in the interest rates, and we saw on the horizon more interest rate increases in order to curb inflation. And so that group of our members, there was about 2,400 of them, were most impacted.
Our goal was not only to help our members stay in their homes short term, but to ensure that they have a viable solution to stay in their homes in the long run.
We really planned thoughtfully on who should be making the calls, and we wanted to make sure they were our most tenured, experienced advisors so that they could really sit down and give all the options that were available to our members and allow them to make a fully informed decision.
Some conversations went smooth and were easy, some were very difficult that required multiple calls, multiple meetings with members, cash flow analysis, and even financial reviews just to see if we have any other options to help them out.
You make better decisions when you have more information. And for us, it's about getting the right information in front of our members because they know what's best for them, but they don't always know what their options are. And so I think it's our responsibility to ensure that you're educating members. We call it meeting our members where they are.
I'm really proud of the work that we've done and our partners have done as well. I have a success story of a member who came back to see me, who struggled during the initial conversations of having to either increase your payment or switch to a fixed rate mortgage because it wasn't in his budget. He was in shock. It was a bit of a challenge for him now to come up with extra money, and we worked with him, and I'm really proud of the outcome that we achieved through our special accounts department, who was able to rework his mortgage, and now he's allowed to stay in his home. He's allowed to continue his Canadian dream.
You know, our why and why we exist, or our purpose, is to really help members and communities thrive. It's at the heart and soul of who we've been for 70 plus years.
You know, we've had an opportunity to do many member outreaches, whether it's through the pandemic, whether it's been through the floods and fires, and we've applied those learnings. It's really about having a one member at a time conversation and looking at the fullness of their relationship and their current situation and really customizing a solution that meets their needs.
You know, I think about a member that if we hadn't reached out early, if we hadn't had multiple conversations, and in this case, these were conversations in Punjabi because we have members that have language needs, she was able to stay in her house because she locked in early.
I so appreciate the amount of effort that's gone from our branch advisors to our MAC, which is our Member Advisory Center, to our retail credit team and commercial team, and our special accounts team. They've all really pulled together to help our members.
Not everything that's good is easy, and so we're glad that we've had the hard conversations to now ultimately help our members.
Thank you to all the hard work of our team through this season, for sure. For your information, we have the results of those votes conducted earlier, and both motions passed, with members in favor of acceptance of the auditor's report and the appointment of the auditors for 2023. So now it's time to answer any questions that you have, and I will open the floor to any questions of general comment, and a friendly reminder that only eligible voting members may ask questions or make comments. And for those here in the room with me, please, you can move to the microphone. I see that is underway already, so thank you for that. In the center of the room, and when called upon, state your first name and last name and home branch. And for those members attending online, you may submit your question by clicking the Ask a Question button on the top of the screen. And another reminder is to restrict your questions to matters of business concerning First West. And if you have any personal questions, our moderator will redirect you to our local presidents and his leadership team. So we'll go to our first question here at front, and I think we do have some that have come in online as well. So yes, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Roy Carver. I'm a member since I believe it's 1981 of the main branch. Valley First has been an excellent credit union for many, many years. I've been very happy with it. Some of the things I heard tonight, some buzzwords, leave me feeling uneasy. I have a question to ask, but it will be necessary for me to give some background to the issue first, so I ask that you indulge me for a few minutes.
If you could keep it brief, because we do have others
I will try,
that are looking for
but it is important that I outline my reason for the question. The credit union has made some decisions recently that cause me concern, and I'm sure that many here, like me, come from a time when we were taught critical thinking and to challenge ideas rather than just going along without question. The first decision was to change the First West to a national credit union, which we were able to vote on, and which I opposed simply because I felt I didn't know enough. And I think when you don't know enough about an issue, it's unwise to vote for it. The second decision was to sign on to the ESG rating concept, which we did not get to vote on. And I confess I didn't know that this had been going on for 2 years. I only heard about it a few months ago. I suspect the two are tied together. ESG, for the benefit of anyone here that's not familiar, stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance Score. Nice sounding words to disguise a not so nice agenda. On the environmental, they would have you believe it is to protect the planet from destruction, and on social, to protect human rights. In practice, the exact opposite is true. On the environmental issue, ESG gives a high rating for any business that is on board with the carbon reduction and climate activism, while totally ignoring the tremendous damage being done to the planet by wind farms, rare earth mineral extraction, and the horrible working conditions in the mines in Africa. CO2, by the way, cannot form a greenhouse in the atmosphere, and I'll be very glad to speak to anyone after the meeting who does not understand the science, the real science in that regard. On the social issue, entities like Human Rights Campaign and the one that you mentioned tonight, Morningstar, I don't know about them, but anyways, the Human Rights Campaign, they use a 100-point corporate equity index to pressure companies into being woke, promoting LGBTQ and transgender agendas, which are trampling on the rights of girls to have fairness in sports competition and to be safe from having their restrooms and change rooms invaded by physical males claiming to be women. 25 points are awarded for promoting this agenda. Another 20 points are awarded for companies that bend the knee and actively market to LGBTQ consumers. I only have a little more to go,
okay,
please.
Great. Thank you.
And we know how destructive that decision has been for the likes of Disney and Anheuser-Busch. A sleeping giant has been awakened. Furthermore, up to 25 points, this is important, up to 25 points are deducted should companies give more money to organizations that are not on board with this advocacy, obviously targeting religious organizations. We would likely be attacked if we were to issue mortgages to churches. This brings me to the governance issue. And liquidity, because the liquidity is, backed by places like BlackRock and that sort of thing. Pressure is put on the makeup of boards to include a minimum assortment of races and genders. This is counterproductive to good business practice. I don't care if the board is 100% men, 100% women, or 100% any race or group. What matters is 100% competence. ESG overlords have no business sticking their noses into ours. I want to see this whole scoring system tossed out before it does irreparable damage to our institution. Now my question. Was the reason for voting for this, was it out of ignorance or lack of research, or was it from outside pressure or from inside pressure?
Sorry, the first part of your question was the reason for...
What's the reason for, you know, I mean, I was going to say who voted for it, but I mean...
for pursuing an ESG rating?
Why pursue the ESG rating? And I wonder if everybody who was on board with it really fully understood the dangers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for your question. And sorry, could you remind me your name again?
Roy Carver.
Roy Carver, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, Roy.
I live in Abbotsford, by the way. I came up for this meeting.
All right. We might have driven past each other on the highway today. So thank you for your question. I would just respond briefly, and I will respond to it, and I also want to get to other questions. But I would say what your board...
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. What your board is doing on your behalf is ensuring we have a resilient and strong credit union for the future. And we look to a lot of things that help us understand what builds that strength into the future. And we utilize lots of different tools. ESG is one of many tools that we use to understand how the organization continues to develop and be strong in the future. So it is an important factor. It isn't the only thing that we do. You've heard from Mark around financial performance. You look at our regulator and how they look at our business. We also look at our business from how we're impacting our communities. And for us, we don't want to just get a rating for a rating's sake. We actually look at what does it do for our communities. Are we reflecting the diversity in the communities that we serve? Are the people who are our members able to see themselves in our organization and the board? That's an important question for us to consider. What is the impact of the businesses that we support or how we do our business in our communities? We want to be asking ourselves those questions and holding ourselves to a high bar in that. Is anyone rating perfect? I would say no, it's not. Is it the right thing to do at any given time? We have to continue to evaluate that as a board, but we do want to say as a board that we want to ensure that we're taking your interests seriously, taking the security and strength of the organization seriously, and we use a number of things to do that, and that is one element of it. So I appreciate your question, Roy. Happy to chat with you some more afterwards if you want to jump into that any further. Thank you. Other questions?
Mr. Chair, we do have some questions online.
Great.
The first question comes to us from the Island Savings Region, Mayfair branch. And the member has been hearing more and more about digital currency and wondering if you can share your perspective on digital currency.
That's great. Yeah, appreciate the question. Thank you for asking it. Yes, just recently, as of a few days ago, the government has been talking about exploring digital currency in the Canadian market and looking at a digital Canadian dollar, essentially. This is something that we are monitoring closely as a credit union. We don't see this as being something imminent, but the federal government is in a consultation period that has begun, and they're looking for input on this. We as a credit union are engaged in those conversations, and we also work with our constituent organization, the Credit Union Association of Canada, who also advocates and pursues questions of policy and regulation nationally as well. It's our understanding that the government is pursuing it for the purposes of making sure that those who are vulnerable or marginalized have access to financial services and to financial products, and that's their intent. But we also, as a credit union, want to ensure that in that conversation that they're also considering the confidentiality, the privacy, and the security of our members and of other Canadian banking and credit union customers. And so we'll be speaking into that process as it proceeds as well. So thank you for that question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
We have another question that's come to us online from the Valley First Region, Cherry Lane branch. The member is wondering how the bank failures in the United States have affected First West.
Great. I think Mark did speak to that, but I'm going to ask Mark to come up and maybe elaborate on that a little bit more. So Mark, if you want to come up.
and for the person online, thank you very much for the question, and I'm sure it's something on the minds of a number of people that are either online or in this room. I can assure you it certainly was on my mind for for an extended period of time over a weekend and into the early hours of some mornings when I was watching what was going on in the markets. The first, I did already say this, but I'm going to say it again. First West is a very different structured organization. Silicon Valley Bank was a very niche organization. It had a lot of deposits from a very niche section of the American economy, particularly the tech sector and the venture capital companies that funded the tech sector. So it's actually both sides of so it's the funders and the tech companies themselves. What happened, as we started seeing, was a bit of a turn down in the American tech sector market, lots of layoffs, things like that. The cash flow to those organizations sort of dried up. They stopped selling product, and they needed their money quick, and that's really what precipitated the drawdown on Silicon Valley Bank. The second piece of it was social media. There was an organization called the Founders Fund, who represented those venture capital companies, and they sent out a sort of a tweet or whatever it was at one evening, and by the next morning, over $1 billion had moved. It's huge amounts of money in very, very short periods of time. We don't have that type of membership base. Our memberships are diversified across retail, commercial, all sorts of commercial, different regions, and we really have a much more stable member base. So we won't see that one come through. We have heard of some others, but they are in very similar situations. They're also much different regulated structure to First West, and they don't have the same financial oversight that is put on us, either by the province or federally. So I think we are in a strong position. We've got strong liquidity position, we've got strong capital position, and I don't foresee any issues into the future. Okay.
Great, thank you, Mark. Others, either here in the room or online? Yeah, go ahead.
Adrian Browers. One question.
Thanks,
you talked about the strength of the credit union, and the financials prove that. But one thing that you haven't talked about, if there is a risk to the credit union, where does that lie? Is it higher interest rates? And how do you protect yourself against that?
Adrian, that's a great question. There are always risks in front of the credit union, and part of our job as a board and part of the role of the management is to manage that risk carefully and in a very responsible manner, and that's why we've been talking a fair bit about having strong regulators as well today. I'll maybe ask Mark to just comment on where he sees some of the sources of risk, but we do, as a board, monitor a whole spectrum of risk regularly. We have it at all of our meetings. We dive deep to understand how the risk is evolving or shifting, and we look at ways to mitigate those, and everything from financial to strategic to market to environment, all sorts of risks that we need to be on top of to ensure that we're keeping your deposits and your banking sort of products safe over time. So Mark, I don't know if you want to speak to that specifically.
Yeah, again, it's one of those things that does keep me up a moment at night, but I just want to sort of follow on the comment really by Sean. The board of directors of this organization hold the executive to account on this sort of things. These are the folks that are holding me to account on behalf of you, the members of the organization. So they're making sure that we are mitigating risk where possible. We're making sure that we're holding assets in safe and secure investments. We're making sure that we don't overstretch ourselves from a lending perspective or a borrowings perspective. So we're making sure that we keep that balance. You asked specifically what's my biggest concern, and yes, interest rate risk is my biggest concern. That is one of the ones you called out in your example, and that is true. And I think that's the biggest concern of every financial institution, both in Canada and across the world. It's not unique to First West. The one thing I'm looking forward is a period of stability in interest rates. So from my perspective, I don't really mind where interest rates sit as long as I know what they're going to do. It's that stability that's the key thing really for me and to keep things tracking. And as long as I start to see stability or predictability in the markets, then we can make sure we make the right financial decisions according to that. So that's what I'm looking forward to now. I think the roller coaster is over. I think we're at the peak. We're sitting there. I do think we will see interest rates sort of higher for longer, but I do expect to see them dropping maybe at the end of this year, but probably into next. But I do think we're heading for a longer period of stability, which is why when I was talking, I was sort of talked about maybe a soft landing for the economy, and it's that stability that will give us the soft landing. It's important to get off that roller coaster.
Very good, thank you. Just maybe one further comment on that. We do, even though we hope for stable times, we model and plan for all sorts of scenarios. We stress test our organization regularly to ensure that even if there's curveballs that come right after curveballs, that come right after other curveballs, that we're ready to handle that as an organization.
One more question.
Yeah, go ahead, Adrian.
You guys appointed Pete Marwick as your auditors?
KPMG.
KPMG, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They were, about a month or so ago, sued for $1.4 billion by Coopers because of whatever they did. Have you taken that into consideration as to why that happened? And would you still want to use them?
So I would just say we continue to evaluate our auditors both for how effective they are based on our strategic needs, and also whether they're appropriate if there's any challenges with them. We do that regularly. Every year we reappoint the auditor. That means we look at it every year. And then every few years we do a deep dive into that and assess whether this is the right auditor for us. So I just want to assure you we do that process. And if there is something that comes up with a partner, like our audit partner, we would take that seriously and look at the potential impact. Good questions. Thank you. Another one up front here.
My name is Jack Damon.
Hi, Jack.
From Narmada, and I'm with the Penticton branch. I get the statement every month, and I'm very happy with it, but it could be simplified so much more. And in one line, just the date and the percentage, and then the amount. But you get about 3-4 lines, and it would be much easier for a person to understand if he saw the one line and put it all up, and then a total. Instead of the total somewhere else, and you don't see if it's added up and where it's, and then it mixes up with, if you're with a partner, if your wife is in there, you got some of the monies mixed in there, and it's difficult to understand. If you would just have one person and one-liners, and then the figures. And if that could be arranged, I would would be very happy.
Thank you, Jack. Are you looking for work in service design by any chance? It'd be great to have maybe a bit more conversation to make sure we really understand your concern and the opportunity that you see. Hey, if someone has an opportunity that we can improve our statements, we'd want to look at that. So thank you for raising that.
Mr. Chair, we have a question from the Envision Region, Willoughby branch. The member is asking whether you can share more about the cybersecurity and fraud threats members are facing, and what is the credit union doing to help members?
Yeah, it sort of ties into the question around risk that we had earlier. I'll just briefly say, and I don't know if Lonnie wants to speak to this as well, but I'll just briefly say that cybersecurity is a significant risk that the credit union manages. It manages it carefully on its own with its partners, and there's ongoing concern, and it's a growing risk for any organization that is dependent on its systems and the way they connect in order to provide the member services for you. So it's something that we manage carefully. Lonnie, I don't know if you want to comment on that a bit further.
Yeah, just a few additional things to comment besides what Sean said is we actually do spend a tremendous amount of technology dollars every single year to improve our technology capability and our infrastructure. As well as in the past year, we've actually increased our cyber security resources of people in a fairly significant way. One thing that I will tell you is that we actually are part of sort of a very broad network of both our community partners in terms of organizations that handle our technology like Microsoft to other credit unions. We're hooked into government agents, and we're constantly providing monitoring, reporting, understanding what our disaster recovery plan is, our business continuity plan. And so we're constantly looking and improving so that we can actually be on top of it and ahead of it. Specifically with some of the concerns, I think that might have been with the question around what might be happening with some of the Russian infiltration, is that we have had a greater level of diligence and review what's happening in that area, and I am happy to report that we have not seen, whether it's in our credit union or partner credit unions or in our industry, we have not seen an increase in infiltration at all over the past couple of months. So to give you some assurance there on that front, but we do continue and will continue to have this be, whoever asked the question earlier about risk, this is an area of risk as part of our enterprise risk framework that our board and our management team looks at regularly, and we're constantly looking at how we can continue to evolve and strengthen and make sure we have the right technology and stress testing capability around this. So yeah, that's why I think we'll leave there.
Great. I'll give one last chance. If there's always that person sitting there like, I don't know, should I ask it or not? One last chance if you have a question to raise. Hearing none, thank you. I think it's Roy, Adrian, and Jack that asked those questions. Do I get those names right? Appreciate that. And then those that ask questions online. It is excellent to hear from members and to have this conversation. We can't do it often, but at least we get to do it at this time. But I would encourage you, if you do have further questions that you didn't ask, come up to myself, one of the management team here. Happy to have conversation on an ongoing basis. We want to represent you and your credit union well in the year ahead. So thank you for that. Thank you for your questions and comments. So that brings us to the end of First West Credit Union's 2023 AGM, and I'd like to thank you all for attending.